Hi, my name is Jojo and I live in Sweden's nature. And in the past years, I spent 2.5 years altogether in a tent, just like this one here. And during that time, especially during the winter time, my most valuable companion was the tent stove that I had. And so I would like to give you my opinion on the tent stove that I have, what I like, what I don't like, and if I would buy it again. I bought this stove 4 years ago with my own money. This video, however, is now sponsored by Handwashing, the company who makes the tent and who is also a reseller of this stove. But why would you want a stove in a tent? Well, first of all, most obvious, to warm it up. To warm up the space, quite nice in the cold season during winter as well. Second, you can cook on it. And if you camp for a longer period of time, humidity becomes an issue. And with a tent, you can not only lower the humidity in the air in the tent, but you can also dry your clothes. And what's also not to underestimate, when you have fire in the tent, well, in a controlled environment, it creates a really nice atmosphere. But why are tent stoves special? Couldn't you use just any other stove? For example, in my house I have this stove here, but the main difference is the weight. This stove weighs about the same as I do, whereas this tent stove weighs only half of it. I think this one is 37 kilos. However, this is also a very heavy tent stove. There are models that weigh only around 10 kilograms, which is nice when you go further distances from the car to your campsite. The stove comes in this very practical box here, which can be used as a table or just a storage space by itself. First we have here the plates for the base, and there is a practical strap that's stuck to get out the base plate. As you can see, I have been using this stove quite a bit. That's why it looks like it looks. Okay, so for the base we have 3 plates here. One back plate that slides in here. And then you have the 2 side plates. Goes together like this. And then you have this for the front, which also doubles as a little thing in front so that the ashes don't fall to the ground. By the way, this is not the only base you get. There is also a shorter base here, which is, I think, only half the size. It's still originally packed. I've never unpacked it before. In case you have the pipes going sideways through the tent and you need to have it lower. That's why you have the lower base instead of the high base here. All right. It still is heavy. At first I was a little bit worried if it's enough, if this just stands on here or if it could fall off. But even during the time on the raft, we had no problems with the stove sliding off or anything, so it's stable enough even if it's just sitting on top and is not fixed to the base. And the rust is because when you put like a pot on top and it flows over, if you cook something, all the water kind of leaves this damage. You probably can be a bit more careful than I was, but it's just rust. You can brush it off. Maybe you can even repaint the thing. So, and there you can already see why I chose this specific stove. It's because of the 3 huge glass windows. All of the other tent stoves that I researched, they only had like a small window in the front maybe. So this was the main reason for me why I went with this stove. You can also see that there is no handle at the door. That's because you have this detachable handle to open and close it. Why is it detachable? Because of the heat. If it stays on, it gets hot and you can't touch it anymore. I think that's quite a clever design. Just need to be sure you don't lose this here. As you can see in here, it really has been used quite a bit. Let me give you a tip on how to clean those windows, because they will just get layered with soot and dirt over time. And the best way to clean them is you take some paper and then some ashes that are, there's still some in here, some ashes on this, and then you just rub it against this on the inside, and then maybe you can see that it's already quite a bit cleaner. And that's the easiest way to clean the windows, because you are producing the cleaning materials while you burn. What you can also see here is that on the side of the windows and also on the door there is this sealing cord. They also get worn out after intense use, so it's good to exchange them as needed. On the front of the door you can see the two options we have to control the airflow. There's one on top and one here to twist. For normal use you can just use the top one to slide it open and close. Only if you have like only some amber left and you put in new wood, it might be a good idea to open this here on the bottom so you have more airflow through. Alright, so then you have the flue pipe system. You have different type of things here. You have one like this with an extra heat shield. This doesn't get hot, it just gets warm. For example, on the raft we had in the first months set up the stove in a way that this would go out through the back door, and the tent fabric of the door and the zip would touch here, but it wouldn't melt or get damaged. That's quite a good solution if you don't want to cut a hole into the tent. If you want to position the stove more towards the center of the tent, which also results in more parts of the chimney being inside the tent, which again heats up the tent more easily, something that I can recommend for winter use, you have to cut a hole in the tent, which is something that goes against any reason. I have done this twice so far and always it felt so wrong. But it's quite an easy process. For this you have this special segment that has a rubber sealing around that can touch the hot flue pipe. If you mount this here with this clamp on the back, it is quite stable. There is still this thing here that supports the whole chimney. You don't necessarily need that when you have this connected directly, but if you have one segment here in between, this gets a bit unstable, so then you really need this to stabilize the chimney to the top. It also comes with another box, which is still originally packed material I've never used. First an instruction, but you also have a rope and a peg, because if you put the chimney not through the tent but first out and then high up, it's also a bit unstable, and this little hook here, you can mount the rope and then put it to the ground so it's more stable. To connect those flue pipes there's like a twist lock mechanism, which is quite stable but can be a bit tricky to get in and especially to get out. You also have to be careful when you handle this and touch it. Those edges are really sharp, so I would recommend on using gloves. Speaking of gloves, I can recommend having a pair of welding gloves like this when you handle things with the stove. First of all, it's nice if you have a pot, you can use it as oven mittens, are they called, I think. Or if you need to take some firewood in or maybe out, you have to reposition something, you can just touch into the burning fire, not too long, but I definitely recommend using something like this. And you can store it in the nice compartment down here. Ah yeah, by the way, normally here on the front is the logo. It fell off. You could say the front fell off. There is one issue I had after some time. Maybe you can see it on the top here, on that angle, that there is a little dent in here. This occurred after, I don't know, maybe a year. I think that's because I always had a pot with water sitting on top of it, so that I would always have warm water whenever I used the stove. After some time it started to dent because of this. Now if you have like a big frying pan on top, then it's not as even anymore, but yeah, I think it's okay. There is one accessory for the stove which I don't have because it was out of stock for the whole time that I was living in a tent, and that's an oven thing on top where you can bake bread or whatever. So if baking is an important aspect of your tent life, make sure that this is in stock before you decide for this stove. Would I buy it again? I would say definitely yes. The 3 windows, they make all the difference for the tent life. For me, portability was not so much of a thing. I think today for this video, it's the 5th time that I took it out of this box. So the weight was no problem for me, and just to be able to see the fire and to feel the warmth, not only physically but also mentally, this was absolutely worth it, even though it's double or triple the price of other tent stoves you can get. Anyway, I hope that you found this review helpful. If you have any more questions, leave a comment. I will try to answer all the remaining questions. And I wish you a nice day and hope that you can spend a lot of time in nature, with or without a stove. Goodbye.